As Old as Time, Part 1, A Kingdom of Sours. Maurice and Rosalind immediately began their happily ever afters. They moved to a snug little third-floor apartment in the Castle District, right in the middle of the most fashionable and bustling neighborhood. A tiny garden out back sufficed for most of Rosalind's immediate magical needs, and Maurice worked out a deal with Elric to continue using the kiln yard despite he is no longer living there. For the first year, the apartment was crammed with work and parties, late-night academic discussions with friends, and loud drinking songs. Days and nights of research, roses, and metal. Then, when the newlyweds' lives calmed down a little, their place became a serene and peaceful retreat from the world. It was just high and removed enough to be unnoticeable from the street, and surprisingly quiet for the part of town it was in. Rarely did a random person follow the narrow shaded alley to the back of the building and clamber up the old wooden steps to the third floor, and friends knew how to step around or otherwise disengage Maurice's clever and loud alarm system, which was why he was surprised and unprepared the day the alarms went off. Pots clashed, broken bits of ceramic broke farther, and a horn powered by an old accordion-like bellow blasted away the sleepy late afternoon hush in the garden and sent creatures and moths flying. "See, told you it would come in handy," Maurice called over his shoulder to Rosalind as he went to see who it was. He had no idea about the door. He had ideas about the door, too, installing a sort of periscope or monocular, and would allow the inhabitant to see who was outside without, say, letting the cold winter air in. Yes. Something with a reflector inside a tube, maybe. He opened the door and was surprised to see a young boy standing there, shocked and startled, his hand hovering in the air. "Hello," Maurice said amiably. "Did my alarm system frighten you?" The boy said nothing. "Because I'm trying to decide whether it should be silent to those who approach, so I may better surprise them, or if I should be allowed to frighten them off before any mischief can be achieved. What do you think? Can you— Oh." Maurice suddenly noticed what was in the boy's hand. It was a piece of charcoal. He followed the direction of the hand to the lintel and saw the beginnings of a poorly written, rather rude word scratched out there. "What," the inventor asked, at first more confused than angry, "is the meaning of this?" "It's said that a great and terrible witch lives here," the boy shouted, scared and defiant. There was a nasty look in his little piggy eyes. "Oh." Maurice was by nature a generous and charitable person. Travelers and dreamers and tinkerers by needs must be, but he remembered the man who had tried to threaten Rosalind the day he first saw her, and the bruised, beaten-up boy the day she had asked him to marry her. "Ah, so what?" "She turned a man into a pig," the boy cried. "No, she just turned the nose into a pig's nose, and he was very rude. And she turned it back, by the way. He's just fine." "Devil worshipper," the boy spat, and turned and ran away. With a sigh, Maurice went back inside and closed the door, locking it, something he rarely did. His lovely wife was reclined in a rocker, glowing but tired, using the end of her pinky to make a stirring motion, and thereby encourage the spoon across the room to put honey in her tea and mix it in. "Darling," he said, sitting down on a stool next to her, "I think we're in for some trouble. Some strange young lad was making a mess above our door, swearing all up and down about magic, it seems." "Oh, those ignorant peasants," Rosalind growled tiredly, putting a hand to her head. "I grow so tired of them. They're everywhere now. Some are vicious brutes, too. I thought it would just simmer down after that whole incident with the girl. That happened long before I came here, and it still doesn't seem like it's simmering down. I don't think that boy knew how to write. I think someone made him learn the one rather nasty phrase." "Is he still here? Where is he?" Rosalind demanded, color beginning to flush her cheeks as she forced herself to sit up. Maurice made shushing noises and took her hand. "Don't grow excited. It's not good for you or the baby. It's over now." Rosalind took his hand and squeezed it and kissed it, then put it to her belly. "You're sure it's a girl?" he whispered. "As sure as anything," Rosalind said with a wan smile. "An enchantress knows these sort of things. Don't forget, when you go out this afternoon, stop by Vashti's. I want her for my midwife. She was my aunt's, and my aunt just loved her." "Absolutely, dear. Anything for you and my baby daughter." But the midwife wasn't to be found. When Maurice stopped by her door and the door was open, hanging, there was an ill omen. "Hello?" Maurice called out tentatively. After a few moments and no answer, he let himself in, keeping one hand casually on his knife. "Vashti? Hello? It's Maurice, Rosalind's husband?" The midwife was old, but in good health. In the back of his mind, Maurice feared finding her on the floor with a broken hip or worse, but he suspected that was not the case. Here and there things looked out of order in the tiny house. One chair of 3 was pushed far aside, a single crock lay broken on the floor, and on the table lay half a baguette, a nice piece of cheese, and some grapes. Dinner, untouched. "Hello?" The inventor fretted. It didn't look like a robbery. Nothing was stolen, not even her fine woolen blankets. It was like she had just vanished. After a few more minutes of looking around, he left and asked for her neighbors about her whereabouts, but no one knew where she had gone, or even that she had gone. Or, he gathered as he watched some sets of shifting eyes, they didn't want to know. He decided to see if any of Rosalind's other friends had heard from Vashti. Perhaps there had been some sort of emergency, a birth gone wrong, that she had been summoned away to. But he looked through the town. Maurice noticed other doors that had nasty graffiti smeared on them, sometimes in charcoal and occasionally in something that looked very much like blood. If the friends he sought were home, they ushered Maurice in off the streets quickly, or made a big deal of talking to him loudly where others could hear, but nothing in particular, emphasizing again and again how nice it was to have such a normal friend who wasn't one of les Charmaines. None of them knew where Vashti was. No one even knew she was missing. With a confused and heavy heart, Maurice decided before he went home empty-handed that he would at least fortify himself at the tavern with a drink and a chat with his friends. There was a sign at the door. Under a new management, no dogs, Italians, or Charmans. Maurice hesitated, unsure what to do, but habit took over his feet and he found himself continuing in. The place seemed darker. Small groups spoke out in loud, lively tones, but it sounded forced. A new and sour-looking young woman made a big pretense of wiping down the bar with an already filthy rag. Frederick and Ulrich were in their usual seats. The doctor had never moved in with the groomsmen, even after Maurice had moved out, but there were some differences of station that were insurmountable beyond drinking at a bar together. Yet they had still managed to stay friends. Both brightened upon seeing Maurice. "Where's Josefa?" he asked in a low voice, indicating the barmaid with the tilt of his hat. "She was bought out," Ulrich said distastefully. "Not of her own free will. Told to move to a more accepting part of town." "She was paid," Frederick noted, but he regarded his cordial glass with a skeptical eye, obviously unconvinced of his cleanliness. "Where did she go? Has she set up somewhere else yet? We should go see her." "No one has seen her since this happened," Ulrich said. "Some suspect foul play. Or she was merely seen which way the wind is blowing, taken her fee and left town," Frederick suggested. Ulrich rolled his eyes. "This is getting out of hand," Maurice said. "All of it. This boy wrote some nasty things on our door. Lots of doors, it looks like, and my wife is dead set upon this Vashti woman for her midwife, and she's nowhere to be found, and no one will talk about her. I have a terrible feeling about it. What's going on here?" Ulrich sighed and played with his cup. "Things are growing worse between regular people, les neutrales," Frederick interrupted primly, "and les Charmaines." Ulrich gave him a black look, then continued. "I've never seen it this bad. It's out of control. Idiots are hassling everyone, even the slightest bit unusual, from a self-declared good wife peddling love potions to Babbo, who sings to himself and makes these little toys out of twigs and moss. They're badgering them, pestering them, and occasionally beating the tar out of them." "Things are not out of control," Frederick said with the patience of someone who had been arguing the same thing with a friend for a long time. "Anymore. That is precisely the point. Normal people are trying to keep control of things, to keep things safe, and they are not hassling anyone who is innocent." "Innocent of what?" Maurice demanded. "Magic? Since when is that a crime?" "It's a crime against nature." "But you yourself are tainted," Frederick hissed. "Yes, I know. Keep your voice down." Maurice slammed his fists on the bar, exasperated. But what about Vashti? Rosalind will be terribly upset if I don't procure her for her birth. Where did she go? She probably left after finding pig's blood smeared all over her door, the groomsman said moodily. Les Charmaines are leaving, disappearing out of the last safe haven for the fae and magic left in this world. I would suggest that your wife choose another for her imminent birth, and seek her no more, Frederick suggested crisply. Find a good doctor, perhaps. Maurice ignored him. But surely the king and queen, well, the whole point of this place is that it's safe and different, and the king and queen are doing nothing about it, Ulrich said with a sigh. Just like they're doing nothing about the salt scarcity and the trade embargo with Grenadine. Perhaps they feel threatened, or perhaps they lost a couple of guards to errant spells. Or maybe they're lazy and they just don't care. I'm not really sure what they do in their towers all day. Guess I'll find out. They certainly don't take their precious stallions out enough for exercise. He brightened suddenly. Which reminds me, I've got great news. Drinks are on me tonight, old friend. Oh, what's the occasion? Maurice asked, cautiously hopeful for something to offset the gloom of the day. Frederick gave a thin smile. You're looking at the new master of the royal stables. Bow, as is only appropriate. But do not breathe in, for the aroma of horse is hard to avoid. And it's all thanks to this chap here, Ulrich said, toasting his drink rather sloshily at the doctor. He put in a good word for me to the king himself. Maurice smiled and shook Ulrich's hand formally but heartedly. Marvelous news, Ulrich. Are you moving up in the world? Oh, in more ways than one, the groomsman said with a suggestive waggle of his eyebrows. There's a head maid there in the castle, soon to be the housekeeper. Frederick rolled his eyes. No good deed goes unpunished. And you, any good news in your life? Maurice pressed. Frederick's dour face looked strangely timidly pleased. As a matter of fact, yes. The king and queen, still impressed with my ability to cure their son, utter hogwash, by the way, have given my own facility for research. It's all hush-hush, but trust me when I say the freedom I have is more than I thought possible going to a traditional college. Let us leave it to the fact that I am able to practice my skills in surgery at leisure, in cutting out which is too infected to save. I may even be able to cure myself some day. Ulrich and Maurice exchanged a look and shudder. The downside is that it's all the way out near the boring little village on the other side of the river, the groomsman said quickly, trying to change the subject. We will never see you any more, the inventor protested. I'm not disappearing off the planet, Frederick said primly, though obviously pleased that someone cared enough to miss him. I come today specifically to see you and congratulate you on your wife's pregnancy. Thank you kindly, Monsieur Doctor, Maurice said with a little bow. Have you had any visions about my baby girl? Can you tell me her future? Frederick looked away. It does not work like that, and I do not encourage their coming to me. Frankly, the very fact that you know your baby's sex is disturbing. Ulrich flushed at the word sex. Maurice just sighed and shook his head at his friends. It was strange to think of them as possible uncles to his little daughter. Well, maybe she could learn something about them at least. The skills of a physician, perhaps some basic horsemanship,